Have you ever got scammed? What happened? I bought $300 tickets to see Knicks at MSG from Craigslist, dumb I know, that turned out to be fake. I got so pissed I walked into an NYC precinct and told them I want to file a complaint. The detective at the time said they're busting a lot of people in these fake ticket rings and we could bust him if we set up another sale. The next day I contacted the same guy from another number and we set up to meet him. The detective was dressed casually and I pretended to be his GF. He gave us the tickets by Dylan's Candy Bar and was busted right there. It was fun. Short story from my childhood. Someone tried to steal my working NES. Late 80s, I was about 9 or something. Had a friend call me up, invited me to his house so he could clean my NES. Thought it was strange, but he was very insistent and I didn't want to argue. Brought it over, he started cleaning the NES, asked me to get something from the kitchen, a butter knife I think. I went, found it after a few seconds of searching, brought it back. He said he was finished, left the NES on top of his TV, and left the room to get something. My NES looked very different. Stared at it a bit, it was missing a crack that had always been there. Looked on the floor where his NES was, it had the crack. Ducker tried the old switcheroo. I tensed up, didn't want to argue with the kid, confrontation wasn't my strong point. I just switched them back as quickly as I could. He was gone for a while, actually had a lot of time. After he came back, told him I had to go, thanked him for the cleaning, went home. After about 30 minutes, he called my house again. He asked me which NES did I take home. Told him I took mine. He asked again, yeah, but did you take the one on the TV or the one on the floor? Just told him again, I took mine. He sounded defeated as he said alright, bye. Almost scammed. A friend of mine from college emailed me like he usually does asking how I am, mentions offhand that his firm is handling an angel investor round for a certain technology startup. I had invested through his employer before with no issue, so I asked him to send me information for me to research. He sends it, it all looks legit, I think it's worth a shot and I ask how much. He sends me the payment information and it looks fishy, like he sends me a physical address for an office tower in Atlanta that I know his firm is not located in and he also cites a P.O. box address in that building. I call the building and they say no name of his firm is registered to that building. I pick up the phone and call his cell phone. He doesn't call back. I swing by his house the next day and he has no idea what I am talking about. He says his laptop, phone and wallet were stolen and that he's been frantically closing accounts and getting replacements. Apparently, the scammer went through his contacts, figured out what he did for a living and was trying to bill call his professional contacts. All of the information he sent me was copied and pasted or straight up forged based on template documents already on the computer. I turned everything I had over to the FBI and my friend's attorneys. One of the guy's contacts were solicited and a handful actually wired cash to the guy, who was eventually caught and convicted of wire fraud. I had to testify during his trial. He's still in prison ATM. Wild. Edit. This all went down 10 years ago. The scam that almost got me is actually brilliant. I was selling a car on Craigslist and got a call from this guy who seemed super interested. He followed up by text asking if it had a clean history. Next text, he sends me a link to what appeared to be an alternative to Carfax, asking me to get a history report for $30 before he drives out. I was literally putting in my credit card info before I paused to think the website might be fake. Turns out it was only registered with ICANN that day. Totally fake. Someone tried to scam me by creating a Craigslist ad giving away things that I left outside my business. He even got some of my staff to help him load it onto a trailer by showing them the ad. So they saw your stuff, took a photo and posted it on Craigslist, then took it away? That's actually kinda genius. In the 90s my friend got all of these letters saying he was a part of a contest, and he just had to keep mailing letters in to enter the drawing. The wording they put in the later letters was something like "You've made it to the final round, and congratulations, we are now prepared to write you a check for $10,000. All he had to do was call a 1-900 number that charged $2 a minute. It took him about 10 minutes to navigate the automated menus once they told him he was a winner and it ended with "and you have won." Drum roll, $1. The worst one is probably when I was desperately applying for jobs after graduating. Hadn't found a job for months in the finance sector and just applied to be an admin assistant at a small local exchange. Looked up their website and everything looked legit. The hiring manager spoke fairly fluent English. They said they were interested in hiring me for a position that leveraged more of my education. I was stoked, almost 1.5x the pay and the workload was much more my style. They wanted some identifying information like my driver's license and passport. Didn't think too much about it. Scanned it off and sent it to them. They told me everything looked good and they wanted to do a phone interview. I asked them why not in person, and they told me I wasn't at that stage yet. For some reason I felt a bit suspicious, so I looked like the address on their letterhead, which was a legit business park in my area. Called them and the phone lines were dead. Called the building owner and they told me that the property was vacant, and had been for almost a year now. At this point I knew identity theft would be possible, so I just went into a full-blown panic getting everything exchanged. Learned a valuable lesson that day. Didn't lose anything but duck if my personal information is floating around somewhere. Was looking for a job and got a call for an interview and went in and it was some MLM for like vitamin juice or something. I was sitting in the front and was polite, so I sat through the video and then started to walk out, and that's when they started being super pissy. I said I don't spend a lot of money without talking it over with my wife, and the lady said, well, I guess we can't do anything if you're not the man of the house and your wife wears the pants. Not me, but a customer at Best Buy. A customer came in, demanding to speak with a manager, regarding a TV he had ordered. The manager he asked for was Tammy, and we had no managers by that name, nor pick up orders for this customer in our system. I asked for more details. The customer had responded to a Craigslist ad for an unbelievable price on a TV. The seller claimed to be a manager at our store, and instructed him to make payment by purchasing gift cards for the asking price, then send pics of the back of the gift cards to the seller. The customer did all this, then was advised the TV would be ready for pickup at our store. Needless to say, there was no TV for him. He demanded to speak to an actual manager, who kindly informed him that he was out of luck. One time I woke up to 10 $100 charges and microtransactions for a mobile-based building game. Never owned or played the game, and was overdrafted $600 while the bank tried getting the money back. Does any real person actually buy the $100 bundles? I always thought they were just there to make the less expensive ones look more reasonable. I know that most games with microtransactions thrive on a relatively small number of whales, but still. $100 at once on virtual currency for a mobile game? Younger guy in a shirt and tie next to me at the gas station. He asked me for a few bucks for gas as he was on his way to a job interview. Said he'd been unemployed for a few months and this was sort of a dream job opportunity. I ended up filling up his entire tank and wished him luck on the interview. I saw him there twice a week for the next 3 months, always in a shirt and tie and always talking to other patrons. He eventually tried to scam me again a few months later, and I reminded him that he had already got me on that line and asked if he had any more. He said he could tell me about his dying grandmother he was trying to go see on the other side of town, or about how he left his wallet at his office because he rushed out when his daughter's school called and told him he need to pick her up because she was sick and throwing up everywhere. Then he paused and said, "Sorry man," and got in his car and drove away. Never saw him again, but I assume he just moved to the next gas station down the street. Best Buy employee convinced me I needed one of their $60 HDMI cables if I wanted Xbox games and action movies to look good on my TV. This was probably 10 years ago and I didn't know much about electronics back then. I'm still pretty salty about it. Me too. I waited in line to buy a Wii in 2006, and I came home with some $60 gold-plated cables. Not HDMI, the stupid component/composite that has 5 plugs and died a swift death. Pretty sure someone's trying to scam me on eBay right now with an item I purchased. Edit to end situation. They're being crafty about it, but I got a little suspicious and found out their game after a little research. The scam they're trying to pull is that they sent me a small gift in appreciation of my purchase, which in this case was a bag of candy. This gift was not mentioned in the listing, but in a message sent after I bought the item. If I go to eBay's resolution center and say I didn't receive the item, they'll put the tracking number in for the candy and eBay will take their side since it will be marked as delivered. I now know that when I file my complaint I've got to put it as item not as described. I'll give it until Wednesday before I file a complaint though. When I was 11 my favorite Disney Channel star tweeted a link to take an IQ test and see how your score compared to hers. A credit card number was needed to see the results, so I put in my parents'. Of course she had been hacked and it was a scam, so I had to go sheepishly tell my parents I accidentally charged their credit card. They were not happy. Yeah, I remember seeing ads online for free IQ tests when I was younger. They're never free, and when they are, Just give some BS range like 115 to 145. They were definitely a form of an IQ test. Last time I saw an iteration of this thread, the top comment was guy who hired a moving company and they straight up stole all of his shit. Was there any follow-up? Nah. They just did a good job of making sure he couldn't reach them. I was 15 minutes ahead of an ex-GF getting to the bank to lock up my accounts. She came in and tried to clean them out. The bank stopped her and called the police. She talked her way out of it. So how exactly can a GF do that? Unless you authorized her, I would assume? Hell, my dad had to authorize my mom despite being married. Got white van scammed when I was 18 out front of Best Buy. A guy or two show up out front of a store like Best Buy with stereo equipment, TV speakers, projectors, etc. that in reality aren't worth more than the packaging. They proceed to tell you they already delivered everything to hit their quota and they are X amount left over, and if they bring them back to the warehouse they will lose out on just selling them because someone else will. They follow this up with stock sheets and magazines showing retail price of said projector/speakers at some outrageous price like $2,000 and say you can take them for anywhere between $1,000 $200 depends on how far you get them down. Then you get them home and figure out they either don't work or are the worst quality products ever made. Stupid me lost $350. This was back in 2008. This scam still happens today, so beware. Not that much of a scam, but still. When I was an 18-year college student, about to hop on the train home after classes, I was approached by a nice woman with her kid in a stroller. She told me her wallet had been stolen and she needed to buy a ticket home for her and her kid, so she was trying to gather enough money. Typical excuse. But I totally bought it at the time and gave her money for one of the tickets. I wasn't able to give more at the time because I had no more money on me, so I even felt a little bad. Until I saw her at the same spot the next day, feeding other travelers the same ducking story. Someone once tried to use my credit card to book an online trip. My credit card company called me and we had this conversation. CC Company, hello Mr. My last name. We've noticed that the trip to Cancun you just purchased online was slightly over your limit. We've gone ahead and bumped up your limit so you wouldn't have any issues. Me, I didn't book a trip online, could I get more information? Note, I had purposefully kept a low limit because I know if I had it at my disposal, I would abuse it. They had called about 5 to 10 times asking me to raise my limit. CC Company, there must be some mistake, are you sure you didn't book this trip? Me, yes, I'm sure. CC Company, in that case, would you like to open a fraud investigation into the purchase? Me, yes, please. CC Company, parts of the conversation I forget. Well, okay, we apologize, is there anything else we can do for you today? Me, yes, I would like to cancel my credit card. Instead of raising a red flag at a purchase over my limit and calling me to inquire about it, my credit card company automatically bumped up my limit without my consent and called me to tell me the good news. Edit, changed phrasing. I was 19 and looking for jobs on Craigslist. Came across an ad for air traffic controller training. Take an aptitude test, and if you pass you'll be eligible for government-paid job training. The scam was actually brilliant. The test was in a hotel banquet room and cost $200 to take. You pay at the door, and are directed to wait in the room and not talk to anyone. They pass out an actual test, tell you to finish in as fast a time as you can, then leave. Before it starts they tell you that only the top 10% will be contacted for follow-up. There were about 100 of us taking the test. Easy $20,000 for the scammers. Not me, but my grandma. She got a phone call from a male who simply said "Grandma?" After she answered. She assumed it was my cousin Taylor and said "Taylor?" Taylor told her he was in Mexico and in trouble and needed $10,000 right away or someone was going to hurt him. He told her if she got the cash, someone would be by that afternoon to pick it up. Luckily, the bank teller asked her why she was pulling out so much money and suggested she call one of her kids. The police were called and they waited at her home for the money collector. If they ever came by, they didn't make themselves known, most likely because of the police car on the street. Just trying to get trimmed armor in RuneScape. I still haven't got the GF I brought like a decade ago. Never been scammed myself, but my mum almost got scammed by one of those fake Norton support numbers. Luckily I found out before she paid anything. As for me, the closest thing I've had to being scammed was being catfished. Man, that was rough. We want to hear the catfish story. The old shoe shiner scam in Istanbul. You've been told to avoid them, and you do, but then they accidentally drop something as they walk past you. You're a nice guy, so you point this out to them. They are super happy, and before you know it they're shining your shoes as what they would have you believe is a favor. Then they demand to be paid for their service, and suddenly, they're not so friendly anymore. Can't believe I fell for it, but it happened. Yes, so I work in a daycare over the summer and I ordered this hair wax online that changed the color of your hair for the day. As I use hair wax every day, I was like, this would be so cool for color week, and paid $53.92 for all 5 colors they offered. The next morning I woke up to my whole bank account being drained. Luckily I called my bank and they were able to fix it and send me a new card. But that is not where the story ends, because I actually got the product, and after using it once my hair started to fall out. So yeah, I just shaved my head that summer. Jesus, this sounds like an episode of something. Seinfeld. Scammed on eBay by a 99% rated seller. I bought a $550 PS4 from him back in 2014 or 2013 when it was first out. Delivery date was passed and nothing received. Dug deeper into his profile, found out that he sold a bunch of $1 wires and built his rating that way before going for the scam. I got my money back thanks to eBay buyer protection. It was my last eBay transaction, too. Thanks for listening to another episode of Reddit X. Subscribe and activate the notification bell so you won't miss any stories. Feel free to share your own stories below in the comments. Have a good day.